What if I told you the most effective treatment for depression and anxiety in 2020 has its basis in philosophers writing 2,000 years ago? When I realised this, I was so shocked. Back in 2017, I was morbidly obese. I weighed over 322 pounds. I was in a very dark place. Discovering the philosophy of Stoicism completely changed my life and has led to me losing over 140 pounds of weight, being the happiest and healthiest that I've ever been. And it all started with one book. I looked into cognitive behavioural therapy, and what I found is that one of the founders, Aaron Beck, quotes the philosophy of Stoicism as the main influence behind cognitive behavioural therapy, which has been shown to be by a lot of research as the most effective treatment for depression and anxiety that we have today in 2020. I couldn't believe that this was the case, and as a result I started looking into Stoicism, and I found the Good Fortune podcast by Matt Van Natter. I then found this recommendation of Donald Robinson's book, Stoicism and the Art of Happiness, and it completely changed my life. The first concept that Donald Robinson starts the book with, and this is one of the foundational principles of Stoicism, is quite an extreme one initially. It was that there's only one thing that's good. And I was kind of confused because I thought loads of things were good. I thought ice cream was good. I thought football was good. I thought being healthy was good. And the thing is, the Stoics say nothing is good apart from virtue. The idea of virtue is to act with courage, to be brave. Justice, to act in order to do the right thing. Moderation, to do the right amount of each thing, not in excess and not too little of it. And finally, wisdom, to actually know the difference. Yes, you know lots of things, but do you understand? So the idea that virtue is the only good rests upon the Stoic idea of the dichotomy of control, that there are some things in our control and others that are not. As Epictetus says, the only things that we can judge to be truly good or bad is the things that we choose to do. It doesn't really make sense to view things outside of our control as good and bad. To a Stoic, these are simply indifferent. Let's move on to the second principle. There are things that are outside of our control that we would prefer. Imagine everything that's within your control in order to act virtuously can be good or it can be bad. Everything outside of that is indifferent. However, you can have preferred things within this indifferent category. So for example, I would prefer to have a certain level of wealth rather than to be in extreme poverty. However, from a Stoic perspective, being in poverty doesn't mean that you have to be unhappy. It's only when we accept these things as good or bad in themselves can then lead to unhappiness and lead to suffering. So in essence, you can have preferred indifference on the basis that you don't tie your happiness to having them. So if I say, oh, I need money in order to be happy, then I will naturally be unhappy because I can't control if the economy crashes and all my savings, the value of them turns to nothing. We have the idea of virtue is the only good, but there can be preferred indifference. The third concept that I really take away from Donald Robinson's book is this idea of passions, which he explains really well. Now, passion isn't passion in the sense that you and I use the word, I feel really passionately about edamame beans. Like, no, it's not passion like that. A negative emotion which causes disturbance. So, and these are based on incorrect value judgments. So what this means is, if I make the value judgment that money is good and I need it, from that, an emotion such as avarice. Now, avarice means a excessive desire for wealth might come around, and therefore as a result I would be unhappy if I don't have the Lamborghini. I need it. I need the Lamborghini, and once I have the Lamborghini, I need the yacht, and once I have the yacht, I need more. It's insatiable desire which will necessarily result in unhappiness. And so this concept of passions really helped me to understand what I needed to avoid. I need to avoid these incorrect value judgments that are based on incorrect assumptions about what's good and what's bad. Moving on to the fourth concept, these are proto-passions. Some people hear the last thing and they say, aha, that Stoicism definition in the dictionary about repressing emotions is right. You Stoics, you people that talk about Stoic philosophy, you believe that we need to repress our emotions. Whoa, hold the phone. That is not the case. Stoics accept the idea there are involuntary emotional responses to certain things. For example, they talk about blushing, they talk about sadness when something happens. Of course, it would be unnatural not to feel sadness when, for example, you lose a loved one. Proto-passions are these ideas. They're not negative emotions, they're immediate kind of almost reflexes that occur. If I hear a loud noise outside, I might be shocked. If I feel embarrassed, then I will blush, and that can't be controlled. The Stoics are interested in the elements that are within our control. This idea of a proto-passion shows that we're not being told to kind of repress our natural reactions or our emotions. Stoics are just advising that we use our ability to analyze our value judgments and use our logic and our reason to, once the initial reflex happens, that's absolutely fine. Afterwards, when you're then interpreting the event, is your value judgment correct, or are you allowing certain passions or certain incorrect value judgments? For example, you know, the idea of money being a good in itself, leading to you being unhappy if you don't have it. Let's move on to the fifth and final lesson that I learned from Donald Robertson's book. And Stoicism is not unemotional. This dictionary definition is not correct. Stoicism does not teach us to repress our emotions. In fact, the Stoic hero Cato in ancient Rome was said to wail and cry loudly every time he heard that one of his soldiers had died in battle. We don't choose to repress our emotions. So what Donald Robertson teaches is that these, you know, the idea of virtue in itself, courage, justice, wisdom, they suggest that what we have to do is to help others. Marcus Aurelius said that we are like limbs on the same body. We have to help one another, and that is overall the main message that I take away from Donald Robertson's book and from Stoicism. And literally reading this book really changed my life. I had the pleasure of speaking with Donald and telling him personally how much he had changed my life, and I think I embarrassed myself a little bit. You can hear that in the most recent episode of the Stoic Teacher podcast, available on all podcast platforms. Next week I'll be releasing a full tiered recommendation list. Do click below on the link to mine and Ali Abdal's Skillshare class on applying Stoicism to your daily life, and I will see you next week for more ancient wisdom for modern times. Bye now.